If you're thinking about selling a Miami home as is, what does that really mean? And if you are thinking about buying a home or you come across a listing that says the seller is selling the home as is, what does that mean? Well, today I'm going to talk about what as is means and what you need to know if you're a seller or a buyer in the Miami real estate market. And I'm going to get started now. Hey everyone, my name's Jamey Prezzi. I'm a real estate agent in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. I work with my husband Ognjen Prezzi and our team. Today I'm going to talk to you about what you need to know about the term as is. But first, before I get started, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another update. We do put out new videos every week. Also, use the link in our information box and download our free relocation guide. Also, all of our contact information is there as well. So if you'd like to call, text, or email me, whatever works best for you is fine by us. Okay, let's get started. So sometimes I do see properties that are listed as is. The seller's selling the home as is, or a buyer will say, what does it mean when they say the seller is selling the home as is? Can I do a home inspection? What does that mean? Will the lender like it? Like, what exactly does that mean? So whenever I see the term as is, I think of a few things. Number one, our sales contract that most of us use here is an as-is contract. Now, there is a little contingency item in there that does give buyers an opportunity to offer their right to do a home inspection within a certain amount of time. Obviously, if you want to go over a sales contract, you need to speak to a real estate attorney, but just generally speaking, the way we can fill in a sales contract as local real estate agents, which we do here, and that contract is actually, once it's executed, it does become the contract by which the transaction is governed. But just so you know, there is a section in the sales contract on an as-is contract that says the buyer can do a home inspection within a certain amount of time. And so just because it says as is doesn't necessarily mean that you're waiving all your rights and you just have to buy it exactly as it is. I know that's a lot of as is. Sorry. Okay, the next thing that I think about when I hear that term is I really think a lot about sellers who may not have the money to make repairs or who just don't want to make any more repairs on their property. Maybe it's a relative's property that they're selling. Maybe it's their property and they've run out of money, or maybe they just don't feel like dealing with the property anymore. Maybe the property has some permitting issues, which is another topic. Maybe there's some title issues. So it could be as complicated as a seller saying, look, this house has a lot of issues, take it as it is. Or it could be as simple as, look, I'm done with this property. I don't want to put any more money in it. I've already bought another house in a different state. I'm moving on, take it as it is. Very two different scenarios, but that's sometimes why people use the word as is. Maybe they're just letting buyers know up front, we're not putting any more money into this property. You can buy the property, you can inspect it, you can do your thing, but we're not spending any more money. Another reason why they may use the term as is really just to talk a little bit about the pricing. Maybe the pricing is fairly low just based on that area. So they're like, look, this is the sales price. You can buy it as it is, but that's it. I'm not doing anything else. Even when I'm negotiating sometimes on behalf of our buyer, the seller's agent will say, okay, look, the seller will agree to that lower price, but just so you know, the seller's selling it as is. Do not ask for anything else. If anything's found on the inspection or there's any other issue, he's not spending any more money on this property. So just so you know, it's as is. So that can deal a little bit with the pricing too. If you are a seller and you don't really have a lot of issues with the property, I think there's really no reason to say as is, even if in your mind you're thinking as is, because I think it can really deter a lot of buyers. So I would be very careful throwing that word around, especially if you're asking your agent to add it to a listing description, because maybe the property is in great condition, but inside you don't want to spend any more money on the property, but you don't actually have to say that you don't want to spend any more money on the property. So I would just leave it for yourself. but I wouldn't necessarily use it unless you really can't do anything else to the property and you know that there's issues already. So just something to think about. Maybe use it, maybe don't, just depending on the scenario. It's a good discussion to have at your listing consultation. If you're a buyer, I think the biggest thing to know is that if they're already saying that in advance, ask for a seller disclosure and ask if there's anything that they know about the property that's making them say that could create issues down the road. I think the biggest thing is the buyers, just to make sure that you build in those contingencies on the offer so that you can actually do a home inspection and see if there's anything wrong with the property. Maybe there's not anything wrong and maybe your property's okay. They just don't want to spend any more money on the property. Another thing that you really need to think about is with that home inspection, the 4-point inspection, especially if it's a single family home, are there any issues that are known issues? For example, is the roof really old? Is there an issue with the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC system, something that can create an issue for you to get insurance? Because if there are known issues and the seller is saying in advance, I'm selling it as is, I would anticipate that they are not going to be giving you any money for credits or making repairs prior to closing. And if that is the case, can you even get insurance on the property? Because if that's the case and there's already something that's known that is an issue with the property and you can't get insurance, then you cannot get financing. And you don't want to spend money going under contract because you're going to be spending money on inspections and appraisals and all other details that go along with actually going under contract on a property. I would think twice about buying as is if there are known issues that can't be remedied prior to closing and there are issues that can prevent you from closing. So just something to think about if that word as is being used way in advance. And of course, the other thing too is if there are known issues that come up maybe on the appraisal with that home, just to know, that maybe the property is not in great shape and you cannot get financing. An inspection and an appraisal are two different things because sometimes people think that they're the same. They are not. You hire the inspection company to go out and inspect the condition of the property. Your lender will actually hire an appraiser if you're getting financing, an appraisal company to come out and do an appraisal on the property, but they also inspect the condition of the property as well. So if there's a lot of already big known issues just based on the condition of the property, that could be a red flag and maybe you don't want to spend money going under contract on that property. Or if there's an issue that can create an issue for title, like paperwork stuff, that's another thing that you have to be really careful about, because if there's an issue that creates an issue for title, the bank will not give you financing on that. So make sure that you have that discussion with your lender so you know what you're getting into. I think the biggest thing about using that word as is expectation. And really, what does the seller mean when they're saying that? And then what do you as a buyer need to expect on the other end of actually going under contract and buying that property? The biggest thing to know is just because they say as is does not mean you cannot do your due diligence. Generally speaking, maybe this contract, the seller says no due diligence. I would say based on my experience, and I have almost 20 years of experience in this business now, usually you can do an inspection and perform your due diligence. So just if you see that word, I would just maybe inquire a little bit more exactly what it means so you have the proper expectations and you know what to expect, and maybe not spend money on a property that you actually can't buy in the end. And if you're a seller and you're using that phrase as is it really necessary? Because you really can deter a lot of buyers if you really don't mean it. Sometimes sellers like to say that in advance and then it gets just translated immediately over to the listing description. And I'm not always so sure that that's a great thing unless it really means it's as is and that's it, nothing else at all. But if you have a little ounce of anything like, okay, maybe I would, give a credit for possibly this, then don't use that verbiage on your listing description or ask your agent not to. So, all right, I think that's it for the word as is and what it means when people are selling a home in Miami as is. If you have more questions, we're always here to be a resource for you. My name's Jamey Prezzi. This is my husband, Ognjen Prezzi. You can find us online on Instagram @the Prezzis, and we will see you soon.